So tell us where, I mean, you shared kind of with the NIH and what's going on with Duke University, which is incredibly exciting, but maybe talk about where the company is at currently in fundraising and in the R&D, what in terms of R&D and what the goal is moving into the next 1 to 2 years.
Okay, great questions. As far as R&D, we do have a automated MVP device that has a Bluetooth connection that will transmit to your phone, and so you can take your phone and you can control that. Actually, we do have the decentralized clinical trial device controller. I think I actually could pull it up real quick. So it is the system is already. Yeah, here it is. So, for example, when you get your system, you got your QR code, you put your QR code in, it keeps your ID away. So we're HIPAA compliant, we're trying not to transmit any user information. Then you check your condition. So you've got your condition and you can go to whatever one of your conditions that you have and select it and enter it. Then you have your temperature control. So right here, we've got our temperature control. I could sit here and show you how this works all day, and you probably can't see it too well. But needless to say, we've got 5 biomarkers on there, so you can report, how did you sleep? How many opioids did you take? How's your urinary pattern changing? How is your, what was the other one? Pain, restroom, sleep, and opioid use. So, again, as far as R&D is concerned, we're planned for having that capability. I've got to speak with my electronics team next week to figure out how we can take what we have on the breadboard and reduce it to a microcontroller and start to work on engineering. As far as fundraising is concerned, between the NIH, yours truly, bootstrapping, and state matching funds, we've raised well over $500,000 to date. We've been very frugal with those funds to try to extend them as far as we can in the things that really matter. We are interested definitely in smart money. If smart money comes to the table that really has an interest in what we're doing and wants to make a difference, and someone that's probably involved in impact investing or value-based care or women's health, these are 3 topics that are probably going to pique the interest of those, if that's the thesis of the investment bodies. And
for those that are listening that aren't in that, that raising capital ABC funding world, so to speak, maybe you could define smart money for them real quick.
Sure. Smart money. Okay. So when we talk about all different kinds of investing, we've got venture capital, you've got private equity, you've got family offices. By the way, we're very interested in family offices. I think that's probably where we're going to find our first tranche of investments. But smart money is, there's lots of money out there. We all know there's lots of investors, but investors have thesis, they have timelines, they have boards they have to answer to, and typically they're about 5 years, sometimes 6 or 7. And there's a performance metric on that. It starts a clock ticking, and for a medical device company that can't get off the ground as fast because you've got to go through regulatory and FDA and all the other approvals that you have to get through, it takes a little longer for med device. So it's almost like shooting yourself in the foot, and so, to some degree, for a small startup to get involved with VC money that has those kinds of pressures so early. So that's what I mean by smart money. Means the people that understand the space you're working in. And for example, a good friend of mine has invited me to speak at LSX in London in April. So there's
I'll see
you know the guy? I think you might know the guy. But anyway, that's a really good opportunity to tell the story and run into those people that are serious about what we're serious about. And so money's money. Money's all the same. It's just, are these the people that have the connections that can help you get to market faster, better distribution, better connections, that in many ways is probably as valuable, if not more so, than the money itself.
No, I agree. Great. Thank you for sharing that update. So I'm excited to be a part of that presentation in London and get the message out and see what happens there from an investor standpoint. So, we talked about the uniqueness of your background, and then, what an amazing story. You end up becoming the CEO of a med tech company because you were patient ground zero, right? That the whole innovation and the ingenuity of its creation came from, alleviating your personal challenges. What have you seen as somebody, and I know that you were involved in different medical device products, but to really come from outside the industry to being in med tech and then being at this seat, right, as an innovator, as an entrepreneur, a CEO, communicating with these investment firms, trying to gain money. This experience, what would you say has been the things that have benefited you, not already being in the industry? What blind spots or things do you think that you've been able to come in with a fresh set of eyes, perhaps?
What are my blind spots? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I'm asking.
What are the areas of frustrating?
You're dealing with, missiles before and complex electronical systems, and then you come into med tech and different regulations. It's kind of a different world. I think sometimes having a fresh set of eyes, because I see situations where companies miss out on talent all the time over the last decade because they're so focused, they kind of miss the forest for the trees because they're so focused on this particular experience or this particular experience, and they miss out on the talent that, they can learn that regulation or learn there's plenty of information on what the FDA requires, for instance, for a 510K submission, as an example. So maybe you could share kind of coming in with eyes fresh, things, what you've seen moving from that into med tech.
Yeah, I mean, the areas of medical device where, you need to have traceability, design history file, you've got to have quality documentation, verification, validation, all that is very common in the automotive and aerospace areas. It's the other regulatory, the FDA approval process. It's, for me, having fresh eyes, never dealt in this space at this level, is dealing with the regulatory specialists or consultants. I find out they're kind of like pitch decks. Everybody's got opinion about what your pathway is. And, it can be quite frustrating, and I've actually gotten arguments with some of the regulatory counsel that I've had. And I have to say that is a little bit of a level of frustration, but it's one in which I can't ignore and I got to stay focused on.
So in terms of the regulatory pathway, whether you go the 510K 510K versus a de novo, has that kind of been, and it's interesting what you said too, coming from auto, because really most of the quality standards came from aerospace and auto that are in med tech now. So
yeah. So I'm familiar with that. But as far as the regulatory pathway, and that's going to be a question, back to your question about investors, they always want to say, what's your regulatory pathway?
Right.
And you're like, to get to market, but in our case, I look at this, I've thought about it for a while, and I want to make sure that I make the right steps that don't put the company in a bad way by assuming that it is a 510K, when in fact, all the predicate devices that we can find right now are 510K exempt. But I've had plenty of regulatory people tell me, no, you need a PMA. And I'm like, wait a minute. But I think, yeah, exactly. I think that we have a 510K. I've been told as of last week, hey, you could go health and beauty and whatever. And I'm like, but I don't know. There's something about, I want to stay focused, medical qualified, a device, not something that is just kind of, there's no real proof behind health and beauty. We want to make sure that we've got the clinical data to support every indication we say we can deal with. So in our case, we're likely 510K exempt, whereas we're going to go after and do clinical trials for many other indications so that we can prescribe our devices as therapy methods and systems for those indications as they're approved, which should open up a big market as far as insurance is concerned and any other, reimbursement type of opportunity. So when I say that's the long haul that you don't have to deal with in aerospace and medical and any other consumer mass market.
Right. No, absolutely. And yeah, you think about like in terms of this product and the value, I mean, the PMA route I would not think would.
No, I don't either.
And nobody would have me do a PMA. I've never done a 510K, but those areas and in terms of filling positions and helping companies with that talent, obviously I've been doing for a long time. That would not make the most sense. But I think one of the things that's really interesting, and you just mentioned, let's go back to the investors. Like, why do people invest? Why do these companies give the companies they're going to give that money? And LXI was just talking. I was having a conversation with them before the holidays, and the three main things that their investors are looking at is, number one, the regulatory quality pathway. Is it going to be approved? What does that process look like? How efficient is it going to be? Is it going to be able to be accessed on the market? And then what is the commercial launch strategy? And then what does it look like from a reimbursement standpoint? And so, I think in terms of the size of the product, the cost to potentially make it, which you and I discussed, and then the efficiency that it could bring, because we just talked about previously these being patients that are difficult for the physician. They're taking up time and space where they can't, if they go into a facility in the ER, like, how are they going to be helped? They go into the doctor's office. So that increases capacity in those places if they're able to be treated at the home and in a more cost-effective way. So I think that's really exciting for the product and for your mission.
Yeah, part of our phase 2 application, Darwin, is applying for. We're eligible for another sub-grant called Technical and Business, I think, Advisory Services. One of the things that we're going to do with that funding, should we get it, is going to be a healthcare economic report. And to your when we're looking at the device holistically, like what you said, not just the price of the device, but what are we helping the whole system? This is what I'm talking about. Helping the healthcare space, being part of the solution. How do we get people out of the hospital earlier? How do we keep them out of there in the first place? How do we get them out of the emergency room? What's the value to the insurance company for that? What's the value to the hospital for not having these people show up? What's the value to that physician who says, I hate this guy, he keeps coming back, I can't do anything with him? I mean, we could go through a bunch of those scenarios, but there is a dollar number you can put on every single one of those scenarios, and it stacks up really fast.
Oh, absolutely. You look at I just read something last month about, the illnesses or issues that are caused at the hospital that the patient didn't have before, or nosocomial infections. So, right, there's a whole benefit in terms of that category that the product is certainly going to be able to bring to the table.
Yep, that's true.
So, as we finish up, we could talk about just some patient outcomes and other applications, but what
I could tell you another one, but go ahead, finish your thought.
Well, let's share another one before we finish up. But what?
Sure. Here's one that came out of the blue.
That and your mission and what parting shot, so to speak, or information you want to make sure that the listeners get before we finish up here.
The opportunities are, I won't say endless, but they're big. I mean, I had someone who, in a space that I didn't even think of, in the sports enhancement performance arena, reach out. I'm not going to name names or what have you, but apparently they're deep into MLB, NHL, collegiate, high school. They were if I had container loads of these things, they're ready to go. And I just told them, I said, I don't, I want to stay medical focused. We probably could create a device that's under sort of not really health and beauty, but sports performance enhancing in terms of the category, and it keeps it out of the FDA. But we're going to stay focused on the FDA route. That's why the 510K exempt is really important, because we can clear that hurdle really quick. There's a lot of predicates, and here's a market that I could jump into pretty quickly, selling a 510K exempt device into the sports therapy, performance therapy arena. So again,
maybe they should
who knows?
Be investing.
Huh?
They've got plenty of money. Major League Baseball, maybe they should be investing.
Well, think about it. You got a pro ball player that's got a groin injury. They're paid what, $28 million contract for the last 3 years. You need to get them in the game.
Absolutely.
This way we get more skin in the game, no pun intended, right?
I mean, I've played small college basketball. I've had groin injuries before. I mean, they're obviously very difficult. So that's there's a huge market there potentially for that.
Yeah. Well, just to close here, I think that's sort of where you were headed is, when we look at the total market size, and if you have any smart money, because I'm interested in talking to you at some point, understand that just 14 of those 20 plus have just 3% of a serviceable obtainable market is around $3 billion. There's about a $76 billion market in the pelvic pain just in the US alone. So it's a really big space. There's plenty of money to be made. We represent a huge market. We own all the IP on delivering pelvic therapy to the pelvic floor. Thermal therapy to the pelvic floor. And we were doing it really, really smartly. And we're doing it in a way in which we can create thermal profiles and therapy dosages for various different conditions that will really extend this device to be, and I don't want to sound too cheesy, but the Swiss Army knife of pelvic pain.
And I get your point on cheesy, but it really is in terms of all the different applications. The ROI on the product, once it comes to the market, is significant because it's endless. And I had the opportunity to look at that, that financial graph in terms of the total accessible market and what you're targeting. And obviously it seems extremely doable. And the benefit to the marketplace is in terms of, I always look at number one, patient outcomes. What does that look like? How safe is it? Reproducible, right? And then patient access, and then efficiency to the marketplace. And this product, it knocks it out of the park potentially on all three. So
let me also add one more thing to it. I know everything that I said was in-home healthcare, and the majority of probably what we're going to do would be. But we also have a business model where we have razor blade, and these devices are situated in the hospital setting. Mamas that have had perineal, surgeries or episiotomies, or anybody that's had a really painful rectal surgical procedure, these people are going crazy. Or fistulas and fissures, nasty stuff. Look them up yourself. But they're very painful to deal with. But the faster you can get these people out of the hospital, the better they are. And we can send systems to hospitals and just have disposables. So we're making our money on disposables. So there's lots of different ways for this company to make money as long as we're creative and we make those right connections. That's why the smart money is so important for us.
Well, and I'll just add this, my clinical experience in hospitals, subacute care, home care, really across the board. But many of these hospitals have their own home care adjuncts within the system. And so that time in the hospital, right, you just mentioned it, there at a certain point, patients are in the hospital for too long, that hospital's losing money essentially off on that patient. So if they don't have to go to the hospital, even better, but to be able to move them into a home care setting and to have hospitals do things all the time just to save money on things that don't necessarily make money, right? So in this case, they could have a product that saved money through the efficiency in the hospital. They also could have a revenue generator for their home care that has great outcomes for patients.
Yep.
I like it. Thank you so much, my friend, for coming on, sharing your amazing story. We could go another half hour, and I think people would really appreciate it. So we definitely need to do a follow-up on this, and we get to a certain point and there's an opportunity to maybe bring somebody on as a testimonial. We could definitely do that too. So thank you so much for your time and your kindness in coming on.
Yeah, Darwin, thank you so much for having me. It's a delight to be able to tell you the last 4 years of my life and where we're headed and where we hope to go. And truly, I'm in this because people are suffering needlessly, and it is a travesty not to be able to help them. And it is exciting when the light goes on with these people after they've struggled for so long, and it's the right thing to do. I don't know what else to say. No, I think you said it perfectly in terms of it being the right thing to do, but you're the right person to do it. Your passion, when I got to meet you the first time, your passion for why you're doing it and what you're doing is phenomenal. And, I'm cheering you on, anything I can do to help. And I'm excited. I hope that this really helps get the word out in terms of the people that are following us. And who knows, maybe the right investor sees this and helps with some smart money or some family driven or angel funding. So I'm wishing you the best success and look forward to being with you in London as well. Thank you, Darwin. I really appreciate your time. You have a fantastic day, and see you in London. All right, man.